Hello students, welcome to E-Padasala. I am Dr. Ramamurthy, Professor and Head of the Department of Physical Medicine Rehabilitation, PAG Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Coimbatore. I am going to talk to you on functions of blood for the next 20 minutes. Blood is an important organ, you will say. Blood, you must have seen when people run for blood, when there is an emergency or when during surgery, people run for blood. If blood is not given in the appropriate time, the patient may die. So we all know blood is an important part of the body. Now we will see the functions of the blood. Blood is a red color fluid that circulates through vascular system, heart and blood vessels. It carries nutrients and oxygen to and waste products including carbon dioxide from all parts of the body. Approximately 8% of an adult's body weight is made up of blood. Females have around 4 to 5 liters of blood and males have around 5 to 6 liters of blood. Blood contains a fluid matrix called plasma and blood cells. It has a pH of 7.35 to 7.45. Its mean temperature is 38 degrees Celsius. Whole blood is about 4.5 to 5.5 times as viscous as water. Composition of blood. Blood is classified as a connective tissue and consists of two main components. One, plasma. Number two, formed blood element. First, we will discuss the plasma. Blood plasma is a mixture of proteins, hormones, nutrients, enzymes, gases and waves. Proteins. They are very essential for the body. These are the most abundant substance in plasma and play a part in clotting, defense and transport. The functions of plasma proteins are: plasma proteins govern the distribution of water between the blood and tissue fluid by producing a colloid osmotic pressure. Plasma proteins serve as carriers for other molecules. Many types of small molecules bind to specific plasma proteins and are transported from organs that absorb these proteins to other tissues for utilization. The plasma proteins cause the blood to coagulate when injury to blood vessels occur. They are an important reserve supply of amino acids for cell nutrition. Macrophages break down plasma proteins so as to release their amino acids. These amino acids are used by other cells. The proteins also help to keep the blood slightly basic at stable pH. There are three major categories of plasma proteins and each has specific properties and functions. Number one, fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is essential for blood clot. Number two, albumin. Albumin is the smallest and most abundant plasma protein. Albumin also helps plasma transport of substances such as drugs, hormones and fatty acids. Reductions in plasma albumin content can result in loss of fluid from the blood and a gain of fluid in the interstitial fluid. Number three, globulins. Globulins play an important role in the defense mechanism of the body by acting as antibodies. These proteins are also called immunoglobulins. These globulins include high density lipoproteins HDL and low density lipoproteins LDL. LDL favors the deposition of cholesterol in arterial walls and thus appears to play a role in diseases of the blood vessels and heart. HDL prevents deposition of cholesterol in the walls of the arteries. HDL and LDL therefore play important parts in the regulation of cholesterol and hence have a large impact on cardiovascular disease. B. Amino acids. These are formed from the breakdown of tissue proteins or from the digestion of digested proteins. C. Nitrogenous waste. They are toxic end products of the breakdown of substances. These are usually cleared from the bloodstream and are excreted by the kidneys. D. Gases. Some oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported by plasma. Plasma also contains a substantial amount of dissolved nitrogen. E. Electrolytes. The most abundant of these are sodium ions. So, the functions of plasma proteins are: number one, plasma proteins are essential for the transport of various substances in the blood like hormones, enzymes and metals. Number two, at the capillary level, most of the substances are exchanged between blood and tissues. However, Because of the large size, the plasma proteins cannot pass through the capillary membrane easily and remain in the blood and exert oncotic pressure. Plasma proteins, particularly the albumin, play an important role to maintain the blood pressure. Plasma proteins provide viscosity to the blood, which is important to maintain blood pressure. 5. Plasma proteins accelerate the tendency of Rolex formation by the red blood cells. Rolex formation is responsible for ESR. During circulation, the red blood cells remain suspended uniformly in the blood. Plasma proteins help in the suspension stability of the red blood cells. 7. Trophin substances are necessary for the nourishment of tissue cells in the culture. These substances are produced by leukocytes from the plasma proteins. 8. During fasting, the plasma proteins are utilized by the body tissues as a last source of energy. So, they are called reserve proteins. So far we have discussed about the plasma. Now, we will see the formed elements. The formed elements are enclosed in a plasma membrane and have a definite structure and shape. The formed elements are: number 1, red blood cells or erythrocytes. Number 2, white blood cells or leukocytes. Number 3, platelets or thrombocytes. The formed elements can be separated from plasma by centrifuge. The blood sample is spun for a few minutes in a tube to separate its components according to the densities. RBCs are denser than plasma, so they become packed into the bottom of the tube to make up 45% of total volume. This volume is known as the hematocrit. WBCs and platelets form a narrow cream-colored coat known as the buffy coat immediately above the RBCs. Finally, the plasma makes up the top of the tube, which is a pale yellow color and contains just fewer than 55% of the total volume. Now we will see the formed elements one by one. First, we are going to discuss about the red blood cells. Red blood cells, RBCs, are non-nucleated formed elements in the blood. Red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. Red color of the red cell is due to the presence of a coloring pigment called hemoglobin. RBCs play a vital role in transport of respiratory gases. RBCs are larger in number to other two blood cells, namely white blood cells and platelets. Normal value: RBC count ranges between 4 and 5.5 million per cubic millimeter of blood. In adult males, it is 5 million per cubic millimeter, and in adult females, it is 4.5 million per cubic millimeter. Morphology of red blood cells: normal shape. Normally, the RBCs are disc-shaped and biconcave, dumbbell-shaped. Central portion is thinner and periphery is thicker. The biconcave contour of RBCs has some mechanical and functional advantages. Normal structure: red blood cells are non-nucleated. Because of the absence of nucleus in human RBC, DNA is also absent. Other organelles such as mitochondria and Golgi apparatus are also absent in RBC. Because of the absence of mitochondria, the energy is produced from glycolytic process. Fate of red blood cells: when the cells become older, say more than 120 days, the cell membrane becomes more fragile. Diameter of the capillaries is lesser equal to that of RBC. Younger RBCs can pass through the capillaries easily. However, because of the fragile nature, the older cells are destroyed while trying to pierce through the capillaries. The destruction occurs mainly in the capillaries of red bulb of spleen because of the diameter of splenic capillaries is very small. So, the spleen is called graveyard of RBCs. Destroyed RBCs are fragmented and hemoglobin is released from the fragmented part. Hemoglobin is immediately phagocytosed by macrophages of the body, particularly the macrophages present in liver. They are called Kupffer cells. They are also present in spleen and bone marrow. Hemoglobin is degraded into iron, globin and forbirin. Iron combines with protein called apoprotein to form ferritin, which is stored in the body and reused later. Globin enters the protein depot for later use. Porphyrin is degraded into bilirubin, which is excreted by liver through bile. Daily 10% of red blood cells which are senile are destroyed in normal young healthy adults. It causes release of about 0.6 gram per deciliter of hemoglobin into the plasma. From this 10.9 to 1.5 milligram per deciliter bilirubin is formed. Now we have discussed the structure of the blood cells. Now we will see the functions of the red blood cells. Functions of the red blood cells: number 1, transport of oxygen from the lungs to the tissues. Hemoglobin in RBC combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. About 97% of oxygen is transported in blood in the form of oxyhemoglobin. 2. Transport of carbon dioxide from the tissues to the lungs. Hemoglobin combines with carbon dioxide and form carbohemoglobin. About 20% of carbon dioxide is transported in this form. RBC contains large amount of enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. This enzyme is necessary for the formation of bicarbonate from water and carbon dioxide. Thus, it helps to transport carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate from tissues to lungs. About 63% of carbon dioxide is transported in this form. 3. Buffering action in blood. Hemoglobin functions as a good buffer. By this action, it regulates the hydrogen concentration and thereby it plays a role in the maintenance of acid-base balance. 4. Blood group determination. RBCs carry blood group antigens like A antigen, B antigen and RH factor. This helps in determination of blood groups and enables to prevent reactions due to incompatible blood transfusion. Now we will see the structure and functions of white blood cells. White blood cells are called leukocytes. The leukocytes, also called white blood cells, are the mobile units of the body's protective mechanism. They are formed partially in the bone marrow, granulocytes and monocytes and few lymphocytes, and partially in the lymph tissue, lymphocytes and plasma cells. After formation, they are transported in the blood to different parts of the body where they are needed. The real value of white blood cells is that most of them are specifically transported to the areas of serious infections and inflammation, thereby providing a rapid and potent defense against infectious agents. The granulocytes and monocytes have a special ability to seek out and destroy a foreign invader. Now we will see the general characteristics of white blood cells or leukocytes. Types of white blood cells. White blood cells can be divided into granulocytes and agranulocytes. The granulocytes have cytoplasm that contains organelles that appear as colored granules through light microscopy, hence their name. Granulocytes consists of neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. In contrast, agranulocytes do not contain granules. They consist of lymphocytes and monocytes. The granulocytes and monocytes protect the body against invading organisms mainly by ingesting them, that is by phagocytosis. The lymphocytes and plasma cells functions mainly in connection with the immune system. Concentration of the different white blood cells in the blood. The adult human being has about 7,000 white blood cells per milliliter of blood in comparison with 5 million of red blood cells. Of the total white blood cells, the normal percentage of the different types of approximately the following. Polymorphonuclear neutrophils 62%, polymorphonuclear eosinophils 2.3%, polymorphonuclear basophil 0.4%, monocytes 5.3%, lymphocytes 30%. We will see the granulocytes. 1. Neutrophils. Neutrophils play an important role in the defense mechanism of the body. Along with monocytes, the neutrophils provide first line of defense against the invading microorganisms. The neutrophils are the free cells in the body and wander freely through the tissues, and practically no part of the body is spared by these leukocytes. Eosinophils. Eosinophils are responsible for the defense mechanism of the body against the parasites and parasite worms. During parasites infection, there is a production of large number of eosinophils which move towards the tissues affected by the parasite. Eosinophils count increases during allergic diseases like asthma. Basophils. Basophils help in healing process. So, the number increases during healing process. Basophils also play an important role in allergic or acute hypersensitivity reactions. This is because of the presence of receptors for IgE in basophil membranes. B. A granulocytes. 1. Lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are responsible for immunity. There are two types of lymphocytes, namely T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. D lymphocytes are responsible for the development of cellular immunity and B lymphocytes are responsible for development of humoral immunity. Monocyte secretes interleukin, colony stimulating factor and platelet activating factor. Monocytes are the precursors of the tissue macrophages. Matured monocytes stay in the blood only for few hours. Afterwards, the cells enter the tissues from the blood and become tissue macrophages. Monocyte secretes interleukin, colony stimulating factor and platelet activating factor. Monocytes are the precursors of the tissue macrophages. Matured monocytes stay in the blood only for few hours. Afterwards, the cells enter the tissues from the blood and become tissue macrophages. Now we see the structure and functions of the platelets. Platelets or thrombocytes are the formed elements of blood. Platelets are small, colorless, non-nucleated and moderately refractive bodies. These formed elements of the blood are considered to be the fragments of cytoplasm. Size of the platelets: diameter 2.5 micron, volume 7.5 cubic micron. Shape of platelets: normally platelets are of several shapes like spherical or rod shaped and become oval or disc shaped when inactivated. Sometimes the platelets have dumbbell shape, comma shape, cigar shape or any other unusual shape. Inactivated platelets are without processes or philopodia and the activated platelets develop processes or philopodia. Structure and composition: platelet is constituted by cell membrane or surface membrane, microtubules, cytoplasm. Normal count and variations: normal platelet count is 2,50,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. It ranges from 2 lakhs to 4 lakhs per cubic millimeter of blood. Lifespan and fate of platelet: average lifespan of platelet is 10 days. It carries between 8 and 11 days. Platelets are destroyed by tissue macrophages system in spleen. So, splenomegaly, that means enlargement of spleen, decreases the platelet count, and splenectomy, that means removal of the spleen, increases the platelet count. Thrombocytopenia: decrease in platelet count is called thrombocytopenia. It leads to thrombocytopenic purpura. Thrombocytosis: increase in platelet count is called thrombocytosis. Now we will see the functions of platelets. Normally, platelets are inactive and execute their actions only when activated. Activated platelets immediately release many substances. Functions of platelets are carried out by these substances. Functions of platelets are as follows. Number 1. Role in blood clotting. Platelets are responsible for the formation of intrinsic prothrombin factor. This substance is responsible for the onset of blood clotting. Role in clot retraction. In the blood clot, blood cells including platelets are entrapped in between the fibrin threads. Cytoplasm of platelets contains the contractile proteins, namely actin, myosin and thromboelastin, which are responsible for blood retraction. 3. Role in prevention of blood loss, hemostasis. Platelets accelerate the homeostasis by 3 ways. Platelet secretes 5-HT, which causes the constriction of blood vessels. Due to the adhesive property, the platelets seal the damage in blood vessel like capillaries. By formation of temporary plaque, the platelets seal the damage in blood vessels. 4. Repair of ruptured blood vessels. Platelets-derived growth factor formed in cytoplasm of platelets is useful for the repair of endothelium and other structures of the ruptured blood vessels. 5. Role in defense mechanism. By the property of agglutination, platelets encircle the foreign bodies and destroy them. Having discussed the plasma and various formed elements of the blood, now we will see the functions of blood. Functions of blood. Number 1. Nutrition function. Our food contains protein, carbohydrates and fat. After digestion, glucose, amino acids, lipids and vitamins are absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract and carried by blood to the different parts of the body for growth and energy protection. 2. Respiratory function. We inhale air from the atmosphere. From the alveoli of lungs, the oxygen is carried by the blood to the different tissues and carbon dioxide from the tissues are taken to the alveoli. 3. Excretory function. During the metabolic activities, waste products are formed. These waste products are taken into excretory organs like kidney, skin and liver by blood for excretion. 4. Transport of hormones and enzymes. Hormones are chemical substances secreted by ductless glands, also called endocrine glands. The hormones after secretion are taken to the target organs by blood. Blood also transport enzymes. Regulation of water balance. This helps in the regulation of water content of the body. 6. Regulation of the acid-base balance. Plasma proteins and hemoglobin act as buffers and helps in the regulation of acid-base balance. Regulation of body temperature. Blood is responsible for thermoregulatory mechanism in the body, that is the balance between heat loss and heat gain in the body. 8. Storage functions. Proteins, glucose, water, sodium and potassium are constantly required by the tissues. Blood serves as a ready-made source for these substances. These substances are taken from blood during the conditions like starvation, fluid loss and electrolyte loss. 9th function, defensive function. The white blood cells are responsible for the defense mechanism of the body. The 3 types of the white blood cells are neutrophils, eosinophils, lymphocytes. Neutrophils engulf the bacteria by phagocytosis. Eosinophils are responsible for detoxification. Lymphocytes are responsible for body's immunity. 10th, regulations. Blood helps regulate pH of the blood by interacting with acids and bases, and water balance by transferring water to and from the tissues. So far we have discussed about the various cells present in the blood and their functions. To summarize, the blood contains plasma and 3 types of cells, namely RBC or erythrocytes, WBC or white blood cells, or platelets. RBC, red blood cells, carries oxygen from the lungs to the various tissues of the body and carries carbon dioxide from various tissues of the body to the lungs. The white blood cells are leukocytes or the various of the body. They kill the invading microorganisms that enter into the body. The platelets are very important for clotting mechanism of the body. When the platelets are less, when there is a wound, the blood will continuously there will be loss of blood from the body and the patient may die. Apart from that, the blood also transport hormones. Hormones are secretion from the ductless glands like adrenal, pituitary. These hormones are taken to the target organs through blood. So also the enzymes. Also blood helps in the regulation of water balance. The blood does a very important function of regulating the acid-base balance and keep the blood in neutral pH. And most importantly, blood regulates the body temperature as well.